The Houston Texans have to answer 7 questions during training camp. These questions must get answered. We'll give you the answers and find out if the Texans have the answer right now as Landry Locker from the locker room joins me. Landry, 7 questions about training camp that must get answered. Variety of different topics.
Throwback John Elway.
Throwback John Elway. Exactly. 7, the ultimate football number. You want to score 7 every time you get there on offense. I guess scoring 8, but nobody's doing the go for 2 thing all the time. Let's start with what could be the biggest story of training camp. Is cornerback the biggest weak point for this team? And do they have enough at cornerback as we get training camp going?
I think cornerback's the biggest weak point because not only do you have the questions at CB2, it's CB1. Like, as good as you feel about Derek Stingley, you have basically a half-decade sample size of a guy who hasn't been able to stay healthy. So as good as you feel about him, you don't know that you can rely on that. And quite frankly, you should lean on the side that you can't rely on that. So maybe the front 7 makes up for it, but I would say cornerback is definitely one of the bigger concerns. And a concern becomes even more apparent and more pivotal whenever, like, the thing that you feel best about, you probably shouldn't feel too good about.
How did they get here? Because I mean, they basically bet on 2 bounce back candidates in Jeff Okudah and CJ Henderson, and they're betting on a 2nd round pick at the cornerback spot. And they can't control if Derek Stingley's healthy or not. I mean, that's up to Stingley to do his work in the offseason and a little bit of luck. But they got to a very precarious position, maybe in large part because of unnecessary contract extension for Titus Howard last year, a big spend on Danielle Hunter in this year's free agency. Like, it seems like they just kind of looked around and we'll figure it out at corner. If we can just rush the passer good enough, if we can stop the run good enough, we'll be okay at corner. That's kind of the mood mentality that they've sort of approached this cornerback spot.
Well, I mean, they gambled on a guy who had gotten hurt at LSU. I mean, and you saw him get hurt in his first year here, and he also got hurt in his second year. So I think that's how we got here. I mean, cornerback too. If you go around the league, like, there's not a lot of teams that feel awesome about their CB2. The CB1 situation, I mean, it's something that they gambled on, and quite frankly, it's the elite play has been there when he's been on the field, but he hasn't been on the field consistently. Like, quite frankly, they gambled on Derek Stingley's health, and they've kind of failed on it. Like, I mean, if we're being honest, like, they've kind of failed on it. Like, they rolled the dice on it, and he's missed a large portion of the game. So that's how we've gotten here, because the data, however you want to pronounce it, was laid out there for him, and it's kind of backfired on him.
I mean, what was the biggest knock about Derek Stingley in the draft process? Is he going to stay healthy? And he hasn't. And the guy drafted right behind him has stayed healthy, has played a ton, was an all-pro as a rookie. Like, it's been a tough.
He's good on Twitch.
He's good on Twitch. Yeah. He's good on Twitter too. It's been
and he flipped Sketch. Sketch is a Jets fan now.
It's been a.
I don't know if that's good or not.
Who knows? Who knows?
Did he?
It has been a, like, you reap what you sowed with Derek Stingley, and then to try to make up for it. Okay, is it? And look, how many reclamation projects across the league, especially at cornerback, have just outright failed? Like, CJ Henderson, somebody with the Jaguars told me, was for 2 weeks he'll be the best cornerback in the world, and then he's basically unplayable the rest of the season. And I'm like, okay, well, that's not great. That's not what you want. Jeff Okudah was disappointing, largely in part in Detroit because of injuries. But he wasn't good in Atlanta last year. Like, they're in a rough spot, and they're in a horrible spot if Derek Stingley is injured. Yeah,
and I mean, as much as I make fun of Steven Nelson because he likes to chew gum on his podcast and all that, like, he's a wild guy. He's obnoxious. I feel like maybe they got as much out of him as they could, but they don't get to where they did last year without Steven Nelson. Like, I mean, we can sit here and talk about, CJ Stroud, Nico Collins, all that, but they don't win their division. they don't get to the playoffs without Steven Nelson's performance, and in large part holding it down for Derek Stingley. like let's just be honest, and playing hurt when he perhaps didn't need to. So as much as easy as a target as Steven Nelson is, and I'll always hit that target. There's some big shoes to fill there at CB2, and there's even bigger shoes to fill, like Shaq size, if Derek Stingley's out and one of those corners has to hold it down for Derek Stingley.
I'm glad you brought up Steven Nelson. You basically need Okudah or CJ Henderson to have a Steven Nelson type resurgence and be better than they have been up to this point and play some of their better football here for you to feel good. And that's not even pretty good or really good. That's just to feel good about the cornerback spot. That's question 1 in the books. We went through every single position on Landry's YouTube channel, The Locker Room. So make sure you catch that. You're going to catch Nick Caserio at the end of this video over on the Texans YouTube channel. Question number 2, Landry, who is the backup running back to Joe Mixon? And if he's not on the roster, how do you find the backup running back to Joe Mixon? I mean, Mixon's a workhorse, but he can't carry it all.
If it's not Dameon Pierce, then that's a problem, because they've told you how much they love him. They've basically shown you that it wasn't like a big priority for them. So if it's not Dameon Pierce, then that's a big problem. I've talked to Dameon Pierce. I've heard what Dameon Pierce has had to say. I feel like he has the right mindset. I feel like he has the right headspace. You've talked about the body type and how good he looks physically, and Caserio has kind of touched on that, as has D'Amico. So if it's not Dameon Pierce, then that's going to be a big problem for me, because that would mean that they misevaluated the situation. Can they figure it out? I don't know, but I think it's going to be Dameon Pierce. I believe in Dameon Pierce. But your guess is as good as mine when it comes to Dameon Pearson down. They need multiple running backs that can make plays. They need it. Everyone in the league has it. You need it.
There is not any running back of note available in free agency. If a guy gets cut off of a team, around cut down time, he'd have to come in here, learn. That's not what you want at that spot either. And to your point, if it's not Dameon Pierce, they maybe have mismanaged this situation. Well, then you look at the tackle situation with Blake Fisher. That second round selection could have been a running back that could have helped Joe Mixon. They ultimately went with an offensive tackle. If Pierce can't get it done, like I like the idea of Jawar Jordan. The scout from Dane Brugler at The Athletic is
what idea? Like, what do you mean? What the idea of what?
The thought that he has experience in a zone scheme. He's the type of player that hits singles, doubles, triples, and then he finally hits a home run for you. Jordan has claimed that he is faster than his 40 time that he ran at the combine. It's like there's a lot of what if to him. It's a nice idea. He's also a late round pick and a rookie. Like I don't want to turn the running back 2 spot over to him. That's what I mean by the idea of Jawar Jordan. Yeah, it sounds nice that he has his zone scheme experience and he can hit home runs. But he's also a late round pick and a rookie. So, it's not what you want at running back 2. British Brooks is an undrafted free agent for a reason, though they paid him as one of the higher compensated undrafted free agents.
He's going to kill it in the Hall of Fame game, by the way.
But yeah, I mean, he should play a lot. They don't have a lot of running backs either.
He's going to be that dude in the Hall of Fame game. British Brooks will be the toast of the town.
I mean, they've
August 2nd round here.
They've only got a handful of guys behind Joe Mixon. So they got to figure it out. And I hope I hope Pierce just locks it down and there's no roster shenanigans necessary for the running back 2 spot to be figured out when training camp has wrapped up. 7 questions that must get answered in training camp by the Texans. Landry Locker from The Locker Room. Cody Stoots here on YouTube. Check out Landry's video where we went through every position in rapid fire and the biggest storylines from them. Landry, the wide receiver room. Is it potential or production that gets those final 3 wide receivers the spot on the roster? We know that Tank Dell, Stefon Diggs, and Nico Collins are 1, 2, 3 in whatever order you want to put them in. But do you go with production like guys like Noah Brown and Robert Woods and Ben Skoranek, who's a special teams ace? Or do you go with the potential Steven Sims, Xavier Hutchinson, John Mechie? Potential or production? How do you get the final 3 spots on the wide receivers?
I mean, I think it's going to be really interesting. Like if I'm John Mechie, I'm rooting against Steven Sims when it comes to the return game, because if Steven Sims establishes himself as the best kick return guy, then I think John Mechie's roster spot is up in the air. I think the days of wide receivers on the back end of the depth chart not contributing on special teams, I think they're done. And I think that Steven Sims, like that's going to be his way to make this squad. There's going to be other guys on the back end that are going to be looking to return like cover kicks. So I think that I don't think they're going to rely on potential, because they don't need to rely on potential. They know they got Tank Dell and they got Nico Collins, who are 2 very young guys who can do their thing. So it's going to be production. And if in production, I think is going to be on that third phase special teams. It's going to be really, really interesting to see, like the Noah Browns, the Robert Woods, they don't play special teams. John Mechie doesn't play special teams. It's going to be like the wide receiver 3 through down is going to be really, 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 really interesting to see. And I think special teams is going to decide a lot of things.
Woods could maybe do returns for you, but I don't know that's what you want in a return man.
No.
I mean,
but he's reliable. Like CJ relies on him. Like last year, I don't know what Robert's going to come in here looking like right now, but he relies on him.
You know what would be, and there's a very small opportunity window to find it from last year, and I may need to go find this. How many times when they had the top 3 wide receivers, which is Nico Collins, Tank Dell, and Robert Woods from last year, how many times they even used wide receivers 4, 5, and 6 on the field? Because Diggs is just, I mean, he's as healthy as anybody's been at the wide receiver spot over the past few seasons. Nico was as healthy as he was last year, and Tank Dell got hurt in a freak accident. It's not a consistent injury thing like a hamstring or something like that. So if those guys are all healthy, they may not need to use a lot of those guys on the field as much as we're thinking about, which then lends credence to your argument, which is the special teams conversation, coverage units, kick returns, blocking on kick returns, gunners on punt return or punt coverage. Like there's a lot.
I think kick coverage is really what we're looking at, because it's very, very important. It's not they kick it out of the end zone 80% of the time or whatever the hell it was. I think kick coverage and I think kick return and all that is going to be really, really important. Like the roster spots are way different now. Like we talk about this kick return and there's like a snowball effect of it. Like, okay, what's it going to look like? What are they going to do? Like blah, blah. You look at the wide receivers, you look at the safeties, you look at the linebackers. Like those are the positions that are going to be the most impacted. Like the days of like John Mechie last year, like if this were last year and you were going to be patient with John Mechie, you could say, okay, he's going to be our 5th or 6th wide receiver, but he's not going to play special teams. I don't think you feel that way anymore. And is he going to be better than Robert Woods at wide receiver? Like Robert Woods is your 3rd wideout last year, 4th, Noah Brown too. But Noah Brown can play special teams. He's been able to play special teams. Like he's got a track record of playing special teams. So you have that. So I think when it comes to this wide receiver thing, I think the John Mechie is the most impacted by this. Like you better be like by far and away the number 4, number 5 or whatever, because this is a different time in the NFL. Like they've completely changed it. So I think that's something to really keep an eye on.
Is there any scenario Noah Brown's not on this team outside of him getting hurt? I feel like the production that he did put together last year in a couple of moments, and I know some of it was, primarily in a handful of games, but I mean, he was explosive. He was 4th in the league in yards per reception. I just don't see how, unless he just totally falls apart physically, how he's not on this team. And then that really kind of impacts, if he doesn't play special teams, position number 5 and position number 6 at wide receiver.
The other thing that I liked about Noah with CJ last year is like there was a lot of off script stuff. Like there was a lot of stuff where like it would break down and CJ would trust him a lot to make plays. The Cincinnati play, it wasn't necessarily off script, but where he earned the extra 10 yards to set up Amendola's field goal before that was that. But there were a lot of times where like CJ was off script and he just trusted Noah Brown to do his thing. So if you're going to talk about a wide receiver who's not necessarily going to play special teams or not going to ask, and I know Noah has like a background of it, just in big game situations, there's like a little bit more trust. And they gave Noah what they gave him $5 million or whatever it was, like
it's
a 1 year $5 million. Yeah, it wasn't trash.
Yeah.
And I don't know what the guaranteed is or anything like that, but I don't think you can completely dismiss that. I know that CJ likes Mechie. I know that Tank likes Mechie, and I know that everyone likes Mechie. I love Mechie. I've interviewed Mechie. I like him a lot, but like at some point you've got to look at the situation, and the situation's different. Like that's the other thing. Like this is not the same as last year. Like if the rules were the same as last year, we weren't talking about special teams and we weren't talking about Stefon Diggs being on the team and all that type of stuff. It's a lot different for Mechie than it was last year.
All right. Question number 4 from something fun and exciting in wide receivers to not as fun as exciting, offensive linemen. Is it green or bust at left guard for this Texans team?
I don't think it's green or bust. I think it's interesting. I think it's green or what? Like I don't look at this and say, okay, like Kenyon Green's got to start at left out. Like I've kind of written him off. Like I've kind of just looked at that as a
lost pick.
I don't want to call it a lost pick, but I mean it was a bad pick. I mean I don't look at that pick as ever. I don't feel like we're ever going to look back at Kenyon Green being drafted at guard in the top 20 and say, hey, that was a good pick. I feel
how good would you feel about safety if Kyle Hamilton was back there?
I would feel okay about it.
How good would you feel about defensive tackle if Jordan Davis was down there?
How about center if Linderbaum were there? I'd feel pretty good. But yeah, I just don't like. I don't look at Green as like validating that. I just look at it as like maybe he can fit in, maybe he won't. I would bet against it. I'm betting against him. But we'll see what it looks like. I don't have a lot of hope for Kenyon Green. I've kind of moved on from that. I actually think like Kendrick Green might be better. I feel like Scruggs might be better. I feel like Kenyon Green is just kind of a, hey, it happens, man. Like even the best GMs miss. I'm not expecting much. We'll see what goes down.
See, I use the wordplay on purpose because I do believe there's a really good shot Kendrick Green is the starting left guard. I mean,
that's why you say green or bust. Okay.
Yeah. I used a little wordplay there. I mean, he played pretty decently in the 3 starts that he had. Ultimately, he got
really, really decency. CJ, I went back and listened to because I was doing the fireworks quotes after the Colts game and CJ in the Jags game, and CJ was shouting out Kendrick Green like by name. Just like for putting it all out there. So, and I mean, what was he playing fullback with the Steelers?
Yeah, he picked up the offense really fast. He got thrust into the guard. I mean, he was brought in to be a backup center, and he got thrust into the guard spot, and he played pretty well. So, healthy, ready to go. Like, I think there's something there for him. And then obviously the loser of the center conversation, be it Scruggs or Patterson. I believe Scruggs is going to be the center. So, maybe Jarrett Patterson's a conversation at left guard as well. We talked about returners a little bit, Landry, but my next question, and we went through every position on Landry's channel. Make sure you check out that video and make sure you stay tuned here on YouTube for Nick Caserio coming your way here
11 minutes.
Just a few minutes on the Texans YouTube channel. I got a couple of names that I feel like are going to be really fun watches in training camp because they're special teams role players. Neville Hewitt, who is the special teams ace for this team.
Damn, you're going in the sticks.
I'm getting deep. Special teams is a starting unit you need to pay attention to now. Like, guys are going to go make special teams plays that save points, save quarters, and maybe save games. Like, that's going to happen over the course of the season. So I'm going to say Neville Hewitt covering kicks. You could put maybe Troy Hairston out there. He played defensive line in college. Now he's the fullback.
Damn, you healed him?
Well, I mean, he's going to be healthy to go, it seems.
You think?
Cade Stover used to play defense before he was a tight end. I mean, he played defense in the damn Rose Bowl. So there's a potential coverage unit there. And I just can't get out of the back of my mind that Nick Caserio talked about how there's going to be a bunch of different versions of players on the field where you're going to have a good mix of smaller guys to catch guys who are speedy, who are returning, and then bigger guys to kind of cut off portions of the field. But, I mean, Neville Hewitt, Mike Ford, who is a cornerback that they brought in to be a special teams guy, played 75% of his snaps.
Damn.
With the Browns at special teams. He's going to be a guy that you're paying attention to. Stover's going to help out on special teams both ways, I feel like. And then the return game, it's tough. Call your shot on the return guys. Call your shot on the return guy right now.
I think the return guy, I think Steven Sims would be my bet. I know that Damian Pierce is being talked about. I feel like they like him a lot as a running back. I also like this format. I've heard some people say that Damian Pierce fits it. I feel like they're basing that on one kick return last year. I don't feel like they're really basing that on what this is. I feel like it's going to be a receiver, and if I had to bet, I think it's going to be Steven Sims. I feel like Steven Sims is the return guy. I also think he's the best punt returner. Yeah. So I feel like he's kind of one of those guys that demands kind of a roster spot. So if I had to bet on it, I would bet on Steven Sims.
And you can make him sort of a gadget guy if you want to do something goofy on offense.
Oh, let's not get out of control, Bobby.
We'll run a sweep.
I know you like reverses.
Shut up, Bobby. Yeah. I'm going to say Desmond King is your kick returner. I'm going to call my shot on Desmond.
So you're going Desmond King. I feel like Desmond King likes this stuff though. Like he's actually like an underrated like punt returner, but I feel like he likes like physicality and like he has that initial burst and then he has like that surprising speed. So I feel like that's a good bet. I'm not in on this Damian Pierce kick return thing because I don't feel like it's based on the new rules. I feel like it's based on one return against the Browns.
I don't recall him doing it much in OTAs or minicamp as well. So that's something we'll need to monitor here in training camp.
It was also his first time. It was also his first time like against the Browns. Like he talked about like, I was thrown into kick return role.
Training camp is almost here. Nick Caserio will talk in a matter of moments on the Texans YouTube channel. So check that out. And then, of course, be locked into the locker room right here on my YouTube channel for everything that you need to know from Texans training camp, everything you need to know from the Texans all season long and off season long. Couple more questions, 7 questions that must get answered. Couple more. What's going on at defensive tackle? You're a little higher on the defensive tackle room than I am.
Well, I'm high on it because I think D'Amico is, and I'm not sitting here. I'm not going to sell you on him. I'm not going to go individually, like talking about each one. I know Seth Payne is kind of broken down, like each guy and all that type of stuff. That's more attention than I want to pay to it. And look, I listen to the fans. I listen to all the people talk about, hey, D-line's an issue, but it feels like, man, and you know this better than I. It feels like D'Amico really, really likes this D-line. And I'm not saying maybe it's blind faith. Maybe it's just me trusting D'Amico a little bit too much. But I just feel like he likes them, and I'm trusting D'Amico on this. And I also feel like there's a lot of like extra stuff that goes into it. And on top of that, the guys that are going to be on their right and left shoulders, I feel like the edge is going to be elite.
Yeah, that's Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson are going to make these defensive tackles' lives easier. And add in Azeez Al-Shire, who was 5th in the league in tackles last year. So you got Will Anderson, who was one of the most disruptive defensive linemen, tied for tackles for the loss, Danielle Hunter, and 5th in tackles at linebacker. That's helping out the defensive tackle situation as well. And, coming off of the season where they set the franchise record for team sacks, to turn over 3 of the 4 starters, that is no easy thing to accomplish. But when you see the results that D'Amico Ryans had last year, when you see the results that Nick Caserio was able to do with D'Amico Ryans, you kind of got to give those guys a little bit of trust that they've figured out what to do at the defensive tackle spot.
Yeah, and I mean, if there's anything that D'Amico you think he should know, it's defense. And for whatever reason, just like body language, podium critic, all that, it feels like he likes this D-line. So I'm not really concerned about that. We can obviously revisit this after we watch these guys on the field. They're going to be on the field in about 35 minutes from now, and we're going to get Nick Caserio in 5. But as of right now, I feel good about the D-line because it feels like D'Amico Ryans does.
One last question. Is there enough at offensive tackle? That's got to get answered during training camp. Either Charlie Heck's got to figure it out or Blake Fisher's got to be better than I expect him to be because Laramie Tunsil and Titus Howard have injury histories. They're coming back from knee injuries. They're going to be, ramped up into training camp. So there'll be opportunities for guys, but this is not the most impressive backup offensive tackle group. There is no George Fant this year, unfortunately.
Well, I mean, and they drafted Fisher for a reason. Like, obviously, like, I don't know if it's a 2-year plan. I don't know if it's a 1-year plan. I don't know if they think that he's ready to, like, I obviously don't think they drafted Fisher in the second round to immediately compete with Tunsil or Howard. I think that would be silly, but do they feel like he can immediately compete with Charlie Heck? And I think that's going to be interesting as we kind of get in the sticks at training camp in 34 minutes, where we look at these guys and we say, okay, damn, Fisher looks as good as Charlie Heck. Like if he looks like your backup swing tackle, I think you feel pretty good about it. But they drafted him for a reason. Is that reason based on potential? Is it based on development, or is it based on immediate? I think that's going to be really, really interesting. But I think you bring up a good point. Like, Laramie Tunsil and Titus Howard aren't going to start 17 games each. So you got to see what's going on with the tackles.
I tell you what, Heck and Fisher looked like in minicamp and OTAs, and it's not as much contact and you don't have pads on. They looked like two turnstiles on the New York subway.
Wow.
It was Will Anderson and Daniil Hunter flying right past him. Will Anderson looked like he teleported to the quarterback, getting past Blake Fisher. So they're going to get opportunities.
I mean, that's Will Anderson, though.
Sure. They're going to get opportunities.
That's what the corners are going to look like, too, because they're going to be guarding the receivers.
They're going to get opportunities to get a lot of snaps as Howard and Tunsil sort of ramp up to that. The ramp-up period, Landry, is over. Training camp is here. The folks got to be following you on Twitter/X. They got to be following me on Twitter/X at Landry Locker, at Cody_Stoots. And then at 12:30 today, you'll be right back here on YouTube live breaking down everything that you saw at training camp.
Yeah, live right here. Reactions. Still going to have the 10:30 stream. We're going to have the morning stream, all that. The content's picking up, man. Like the downtime is done. So business is going. We're not just going to play press conferences. We're not going to just sit here and nitpick and show up and wake up and dust the fog out of our eyes and see what's going on and scroll through. We got you covered, man. Let's eat. Let's go. Let's roll. We got you.
I mean,
locker room, Cody Stoots. Let's see. Nick Caserio about to speak too. We got questions for him.
Oh,
we got questions for him.
We got lots of questions. We're gonna be covering up some folks to get all the questions in there because we've been talking about it for 2 days about what questions we're gonna ask Nick Caserio. So you'll be able to hear that at his press conference here in just a moment. I mean, this is where you're gonna get the best Texans coverage. We're gonna be at every training camp practice. We're gonna give you observations, nuggets, information. The 2024 season starts here. It's starting in mid-July. Hopefully it ends in mid-February, and that'll be a fun one. And you'll be along with us here on the Locker Room on YouTube, right here on YouTube as well. Landry, tell the folks one more time where they can find everything.
Locker Room at Landry Locker on Twitter. I got you covered. You already know. Top in the radio game, top in the digital game. Let's effing eat. Nick Caserio, what the hell you got to say about process over results? Get over to the Houston Texans YouTube channel. He'll answer that question among many other things. Appreciate y'all for rolling through. Cody Stoots, other half of the Digital Kings. Let's eat.
Landry Locker live at 12:30. Houston football for everything that you need to know from the training camp practice today. And Nick Caserio coming your way over on the Houston Texans YouTube channel right now.